Hello and welcome to Dicky Small Engines. In this video I'm going to show you how to bench test a starter motor solenoid. This is off a Toro 190DH ride-on mower, sit-on mower, whatever you want to call them. When I got it, it wouldn't start, so you get on it, turn the key and you will just hear it click, and that's it. Now after a few tests I managed to test that there was voltage going to the solenoid, but there wasn't voltage coming out the solenoid, which made me believe that it was a solenoid at fault, which it is, but there's also other faults with the mower as well, which hopefully should be done tomorrow. So I've got two solenoids, the old one and a new one, so I thought it would be handy to do a video on how to test them. You don't need any fancy equipment for this. You just need a battery, 12-volt battery, which you can use your mower battery if that's healthy, a multimeter that measures continuity, and some wire or jump leads. That's what I'm using. Now I am doing this on my phone. I film on my phone, so you'd have to excuse the fact that it might be a bit wobbly or shaky or whatever. So I thought I'd explain how the solenoid works as well. Now bear in mind, this is all my understanding, okay? I'm not a trained mechanic or qualified or anything like that. I just play about with things until they work or get worse, which is how I've learned most things. Now a solenoid, starter solenoid on a ride-on mower, ride-on, why keep saying ride-on, sit-on, it sounds weird, sit-on mower. It's slightly different to a car solenoid. Solenoid on a car is part of the starter motor, it's joined. On a mower, it's a separate unit. Okay, so it's this. So what we're going to go through is, this is the old one actually. I'm going to show you on a new one just because it's cleaner and easier to see. So you've got 4 posts. Right, you've got 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now they also do a 3-post. Now these two here, I'll explain it a bit later, but these two are basically positive and negative. Now the negative on a 3-post is this. Okay, so the earth, so rather than it having its own separate post for the earth, it just becomes this mount, and then this mount would be mounted to a metal part of the mower, so it would complete the earth. But this one is 4-post, that's the old one, so you can see. So I'm going to try and explain how the ignition system works on a mower, and I don't know if I'll be that good at explaining it, so I've drawn a picture as well for you all to see. So I'll just explain it on this briefly and then I'll show you the picture. So what you'll have is you'll have the positive lead that comes off the battery, and it will go to one of these terminals. Now it doesn't matter which one, but it will go to one of them. So just for argument's sake, we're going to say this one. Okay, so remember, this one comes from the battery. This one will also have the same type of lead, and it will go to the starter motor, so direct to the starter motor. So with the mower turned off, there is no connection between these two, nothing. Okay, if you did continuity between these two, it wouldn't happen, there's nothing. These two little posts here, they need 12 volts. Okay, so what happens is when 12 volts is supplied to here, you energise the solenoid, and there's a magnet inside here, and the magnet will lift up, which you'll hear a clonk when it lifts up, and it will connect these two together. So the idea is when you turn the key, it sends power to these two here, which will then lift up that bar, which will then connect these two, so that will send power straight to the starter motor to start it, and that's it. So the way you get power to these bits here is you'll have excuse me, you'll have the positive that comes from the battery. It'll go to this post here. You'll then have a small wire that's also connected to this post, and this will go to the battery connector of the ignition switch. So when you turn that key, when you turn the key on the ignition on, then that will supply a 12 volt to the ignition switch. So when you then turn the key even more to start it, that will connect inside the ignition switch, which I'll do a video on how it works a bit later on. That will then connect that battery 12 volt to the solenoid terminal of the ignition switch, which will then send power back down another little cable, which will go to this terminal here. And then this one is earth, so this one's connected to the chassis. So now suddenly you've got 12 volt here, which will energise this, which will connect these two, which in theory will start the mower. So I'll show you the bit of paper, my drawing. So this is my attempt at drawing. So we'll start here at the battery. So obviously the negative is earth to the chassis. So you've got the positive, it runs down to, this is the solenoid. So that's one of the big terminals. So that is, I've drawn it wrong, but let's say that's that. So that is that, and that is that. So you've got 12 volt that runs down to that. Now you've also got this little cable. So this is the little cable that runs down. This is the ignition switch. So it will run to a terminal. Let's just say that connector, for example. Okay, so just by turning the ignition on, you sent power straight to that, which sent power to that. Now, when you turn the key inside the ignition switch, it will connect these two terminals. So now the power will run down into that switch or into that connector, and then out into here. So it won't go direct to this post here. Now this post is that, and then that post is that. So it doesn't run direct to that. Now on a sit-on mower, it's got safety features. So a lot of the time you'll sit on it, and before you can start it, you need to put your foot on the brake. You need to make sure that the cutter is disengaged. So they've got sensors or switches. So what it will do is it will run through those switches before it allows any energy to go to the solenoid. Now these are quite simple. These they basically run on, well, resistance. So what happens is 12 volt will run through here. If the switch is working properly and it's activated or it's pushed in, however it works, then it will link these two up here, so then the power can continue to run to the next switch. That's okay, they'll link that, then it can finally travel up to the solenoid. That's connected to the ground, just like negative is on the battery, and that will energize this, pull the magnet up, which will then connect these two posts inside, and then that will allow 12 volt to run through to the starter motor. So a way you can test, hang on, let me think. A quick way you can test is if you turn the key and you don't hear that donk, which I'll show you a bit later on, but if you don't hear that donk, then it could possibly be an issue with one of these switches. Okay, because what will happen is if this is faulty, there's my pen. So let's say this one's faulty, so it doesn't work. Now 12 volt will run down to here. You turn the key, it will then connect to here. It will get to here, and it doesn't work. So there's no connection. All right, so there's resistance. Okay, there's a break. All right, and the way these switches work is very similar to the solenoid. So it will just, if the button's pushed in, it will allow the two pins to connect inside. If there's a fault or it doesn't get pushed in, then there's a break, there's a gap. So the 12 volt physically cannot travel through. So if you hear that donk, then I would say it's safe to assume that these switches aren't the problem. They work fine. Otherwise the power wouldn't get to there in the first place. It would stop at one of these. Okay. If there's no donk, then you can check these, and we'll possibly do a video on how to check these a bit later on as well, while I've got the mower here in pieces. So hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, I'll do a video on how ignition works probably tomorrow, but that's the basic idea. Okay, so we'll go back to testing the solenoids. So like I said, you don't need anything fancy. You just need a 12 volt battery, I've got there, some cheap jump leads, which is what I've got here, and a multimeter that does continuity. So I've got the multimeter. I'll turn it off. So what you want is the continuity down here. This has got a bleep on it. Okay, so when there is no resistance, then you'll hear this noise. Okay, and that means that there's no resistance, so electricity is flowing through. Alright, there's nothing holding it back, there's nothing stopping it, there's no breaks, there's no gaps, there's no nothing. So we are going to test the old one first. So remember, we need 12 volt here, which energizes this, which links these two together. So I'm going to just connect up my battery because I can't hold the phone and show you me connecting up the battery. So we want to get that out of the way, we want the positive on this one here. Now it doesn't matter which way these go around, but I believe it does matter which way these go around, so just take note of the cables, which way around they go when you take it off. And we will connect that to there. Actually, no, we won't connect that to there. Now, the other thing I need to say is, please, please, please be careful. Do not allow these to touch. Okay, when it's connected to the battery. So, that for the minute. Right, where are we? So that's the setup. Obviously I haven't connected that up yet. Now this donks, okay, when you touch that on there you'll hear it donk, so you'll hear the magnet move, which makes you think it's going to work, but it doesn't. So hopefully you can hear that. Okay, so I'm going to connect it up and leave it connected. So we have 12 volt going to these now. So in theory, these two should be connected. So it's on continuity. Nothing. Nothing. So obviously inside here, that bar's corroded or it's snapped or it's broken or there's something happened that's not allowing these two terminals to touch. So if you were to start or try and start the mower, so you turn the key, which is supply 12 volt to here, which is exactly the setup I've got here, there's no link. So even though you'll have 12 volt coming to here, it won't be coming out to the starter motor, okay, because there's resistance, there's a break, they're not connected. Now, just to show you, hang on, let me try and get a, it's difficult with only two hands. Get that in there. So just to show you, I've got my positive terminal in there. Okay, so that's on that post, positive post. And I'm about to connect this negative one up, so without knocking the positive. So you can see on the multimeter, I've got 12.4 volts. Okay, so that is the same as you turning that key. So that is the one that doesn't work. And now, just a little thing. When you disconnect these, I would always disconnect the negative direct from the battery first, and then that way, if you do touch these together by mistake when you take them off, sorry, I forgot. If you do accidentally touch these, nothing's going to happen because you've disconnected it from the battery. So remember, battery first. So this is the old one. Get rid of that. That's the new one. We're going to do exactly the same. Sorry, I had to stop filming, my phone battery died. So we're going to connect this one, this is the new one. Going to connect this one up, same as we did with the old one. So positive on there, positive is connected to the battery, make sure you get them on the right way around on the battery. The negative is going to be connected there. And I'll just sort out these leads. So we'll hear the same noise as soon as we connect it up. You're going to hear that donk. So you hear that? So, in theory, let's put a multimeter on continuity. We should have continuity between these two, and we do. So you've just turned the key, which is supplied 12 volts from here, which comes from the battery, goes from the battery, goes to this terminal here. It'll go from here back up to the ignition switch via a smaller cable, and it will go from the ignition switch as soon as you turn the key through the other switches like the brake switch, the cutter switch. If they're all okay, it will then come back to here and then go direct, sorry, it will go back to here, sorry, and energize these two. Then this cable will then suddenly have the same amount of power as this one because it's now linked, and then it will go straight to the starter motor and it will start the mower, hopefully. So that's basically how you test it. Okay, if you supply 12 volts, apply 12 volts to here, or 12 volts to the positive, and make sure that this has got a good connection to earth, then there should be power here. So hopefully that makes sense, and like I said, I'm quite new to this. I'm new to YouTube videos as well, so I might not explain it the best, but if you do get stuck, you can email me, or you can leave a comment. If you like the video, then please subscribe. And like the video as well. The next one will hopefully be about this. I mean, it'll be a short video because there's not much to it, to be honest. And then possibly the one after will be the actual mower. Now I've done most of the mower already, just because it's taken me a while to research about it all and do some tests. But I can explain what I have done so far, which might help some people fault find their own machines. Alright, so thank you for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed it.